Hey guys, you're watching Btekt. I'm Basil, and this is the review of the Sony Xperia XZ. It's our first live review, so hopefully you guys are going to enjoy it. We've got a whole load of your questions. The way we are going to go around the review is, as per usual, start with the design, then move on to the screen. Then we're going to talk about what's inside in the camera and the user interface, then focus on the camera, multimedia in general, talk about the speaker comparison we posted earlier today, which some of you guys were super vocal about. In fact, a little bit abusive, but I'm going to take that one on the chin. After that, internals, processor, memory, everything that I think about that. Finally, wrapping up on battery life. So now you know the general structure. We've actually got a whole load of questions lined up that you guys posted in the forum already. So Gina's here. She's going to be my helper. She's going to read them out for me. So Gina, what questions have we got so far?
How's the red colour reproduction?
Red colour reproduction on the camera. I'll pick up on that when we jump into camera a bit later.
Okay. The bezels, do they make a difference compared to the Z5 Premium?
Compared to the Z5 Premium, the bezels are actually, they don't make a difference because it's a smaller device. It feels smaller than the Z5 Premium. The Z5 Premium is 5.5 inches. I generally find that up and top bezels, up and down bezels, sorry, pretty comfortable in the hand because it's side-by-side bezels that make the phone fat and make the phone hard to grip, sorry. So the bezels up top and bottom don't seem to impact too much for me personally.
Lots of questions about the camera.
Camera. Okay, we're going to jump into the camera in detail. If you haven't already checked it out, we've uploaded video samples on this thing, image stabilization samples compared with the iPhone 7 and a whole load of other stuff. But if there isn't anything to...
Is Sony the unrivaled king at the end of the day?
Is Sony... Well, you're going to have to wait for the conclusion before we say whether Sony is the unrivaled king. But there is one thing for sure that Sony can do that no other manufacturers are doing right now. Make a phone that stands up all by itself. That's pretty cool if you're a giant dork like me. So I used to love the Microsoft Lumias and the Nokia Lumias, and that's actually going to lead me straight on to my first talking point, which is going to be the design of this phone. As with the X Compact, there's a new design language in town, and it is rounded corners, rounded sides even, and a lot of bezel up top and bottom, bringing the Xperia Z5 into frame. You can see all of the sides look exactly the same, and it looks sweet. It's kind of got a beautiful color range, and it's flat back, classical design, but the new design just feels a little bit more comfortable in the hand. It feels like a glossy back. It's got a gloss finish to the in-hand feel, but it's actually metal backing, and that's thanks to the Alkaleido metal treatment on the back. The back's also kind of a different color from every angle, so it looks very, very good. Starting with the actual materials, this is a metal designed phone. As far as the buttons and ports go, right hand side you've got a fingerprint scanner / power button. You've also got a volume rocker as well as a camera button, and down at the base is a USB Type-C connector. These are the first two Sony phones which run with USB Type-Cs. Left hand side of the phone is where you've got the SIM card and micro SD card, while up at the top is that 3.5mm jack. Round the back is a 23 megapixel camera complete with 3 types of autofocus, phase detection, laser, etc. And of course that 5-axis digital image stabilization. Interestingly, the front camera is 13 megapixels and an incredibly wide angle. For people with loads of friends, this is going to be the front camera for you. Right, the design. Generally speaking, a lot of people I've met haven't really loved the bezels, and that's been a consistent talking point. I don't mind them so much, so for me personally, the design easily scores an 8.5 out of 10. I really like the Alkaleido metal treatment on the back. I like that in spite of feeling glossy, it isn't glossy, and it also doesn't attract fingerprints too readily either. In addition to that, the in-hand feel is just a lot softer and a lot richer, feels more premium than the Z series before it. So that's pretty much the design in a nutshell. Gina, any questions on the design before we move on?
Not really about the design. A lot of people want to know about overheating issues.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about overheating, guys. I'm going to spoil it a little bit and just say I have run into some heat issues with this thing. So you've got that to look forward to. And it is, unsurprisingly, around the camera, which is weird. But what's weird is it's not just around the rear camera. It's actually around the front camera as well in this instance for the first time in my experience with a Sony phone. But before I jump into that, I'm going to talk Oh, one question on design.
One question on design. We just want display. You're about to jump
Okay,
into
yeah,
that.
yeah.
The display of the XZ next to the Z5.
Display of the XZ next to the Z5. Okay, what I'm going to do in that case, I'm going to hold them side by side and I'll try and get the same wallpaper on both. And that brings me onto the display. And I mean, talking about specs, and it's a real case of deja vu here. You've got the exact same specs pretty much as found on the Xperia Z5, a 5.2-inch display, full HD resolution, 424 pixels per inch. So nothing particularly new here. It's also an IPS display as well. Firing up the wallpapers, let me try and get something as similar as possible across both.
You're just not quite in frame.
Oh. Sorry, there you go. Guys, sorry, Gina just told me I wasn't quite in frame. So I've got the same wallpaper up across both. Fire them both to max brightness without trying to blow the camera out, or relatively max brightness. And instantly, the Z5 seems to have auto brightness switched on because it seems to be overriding my brightness. There you go. So that's much, much better. And side by side, the Xperia Z5 looks to be a little bit whiter, less deep. Viewing angles look pretty similar across both. Color reproduction on the Z5 potentially a little bit cooler. This is a gold image, so not necessarily the best to go with, but like the sharpness is going to be identical. The clarity, it really is going to be a similar experience. IPS, you've got fundamentally the same tech on there. Now, as far as the screen though, what you do get is, as a result, a really, really good screen experience. As far as the sharpness goes, I can't see a problem with having a full HD screen at 5.2 inches. It's never bugged me before. It isn't bugging me now. The Huawei P9 has a great screen at 5.2 inches. This is a great screen. What's also really nice about it is the fact that it goes very, very low in terms of brightness as well. We can compare it with the Z5's brightness, dropping it right down to the bottom. And yeah, both seem to do a really, really nice job. I found that when I was reading with this thing at night, it was causing hardly any eye strain whatsoever. The one thing that this doesn't have, or at least out of the box, you'll have to download an external app, is blue light filtering. So yeah, the screen, not the sharpest out there. Do I care? No. General quality, really, really good. It has a slightly kind of reddish hue, but what's awesome about Sony phones as well is if you jump into the settings, you can jump into the display settings and tweak the brightness level. I'm sorry, you can tweak the white balance even. There you go. And you can make it a bluer hue if your eyes so choose to. It's also worth noting that the display has got really, really strong viewing angles. A lot of IPS screens in this kind of size and everything don't necessarily match up to this. So Gina's got a question for me.
Well, is this IPS or OLED? And you've just said it's IPS.
Yeah, it's an IPS panel.
The colours. Do you have a personal preference? Someone's asked.
In terms of what?
Of the XZ.
So yeah,
how it comes.
I think like if you're looking at this screen in isolation, it looks absolutely great. I mean, you guys can probably see the fact that you asked is it an OLED or an IPS. There's a lot of punch on this thing, side on, head on. It's a really, really, really good looking screen. Sony's also done some great things with the user interface. They've got some really great iconography and like tweak the saturation levels so it just looks kind of like an OLED screen. But when you do put it side by side with a Galaxy S7, the blacks just aren't as deep. The colors just aren't quite as poppy. Still super good though.
What's it like under the sun?
Under the sun, it's really, really good. So just like with other phones, it seems to kind of go into overdrive, whack the ambient light sensor on, and then it just seems to beam under the sun.
And unrelated to this, any screen bleeding?
Screen bleeding, haven't experienced any at all.
Okay. Why should you buy the XZ over the OnePlus 3?
Why should the XZ over the OnePlus 3? Oh, that's a tricky one. What we'll do, Gina, if you could make note of questions like that and we'll answer them all at the end. What I want to do, I want to keep this review relatively structured, jumping from section to section. Why? Because what we're going to do after this review is done, for anyone who's not watching this live, is we're going to, you can see in the description, we've got all the different sections. We're going to time code them. So you don't have to wait through this entire review and me answering your questions before you get to the section that you really care about. I've also linked through to some of the tests that we've done in the description below, and we'll also be linking linking through to image samples too. These aren't all done yet, but they will be once the review is flicked live and is searchable. Right, so now we've talked about the screen quality and the design, and both are a solid 8 to 8.5. I don't really care about having more pixels. I wouldn't have minded an OLED display, but this is one of the best IPS displays that I've seen, and the design is a really, really beautiful, beautiful finish, and the bezels up top and bottom don't bug me too much because they don't impede too much on my hand reach. The interface is also a real high point here. If we take a look through, I can quickly navigate. You've got home screens. You've got Google now to the left, which is a nice little bit of stock for you. You've also got your applications, and you can swipe through your applications. So you can also search your applications either by pulling down for a universal search or by jumping into your apps and searching your applications like that. And pull down from the top and you have your two-tiered notifications tray as well, which is a sweet deal. There's a good balance of stock and there's also a good balance of Sony customizations. But what the best thing is about those Sony customizations, they are really customizable. You can have large icons, small icons. You can even do things like allow auto rotation of your screen as well, and that's your home screen too, which most manufacturers tend to lock down. You can change having the names of the icons in dock, pane transitions, and also scrolling down, you can double tap to sleep if you so choose. So I can tap somewhere on the home screen that I am not using and it will automatically make the phone sleep. That doesn't automatically switch on double tap to wake. Oh no, to do that you have to tap open separately for in the settings. So jump into the settings, jump into display settings, scroll down to the bottom, and here I can double tap to wake. So double tap to sleep, double tap to wake, double tap to wake. There you go. Why they do them separately, I'm not entirely sure. But what I did find is Sony's double tap to wake is very sensitive, so it does tend to double tap and switch on in your pocket and gives you a little bit of a warm thigh once the screen and phone have been on in your pocket for a while. So the user interface does get a big thumbs up. It's going to largely be dictated by how good Sony is at rolling out updates to Marshmallow, to Nougat even. This is a brand new phone. The V20 I think has come out with Nougat now, so this is already a little bit behind the times in spite of the fact it's just come out. So fingers crossed Sony gets Nougat on ASAP. I'd be really interested to see what you guys think of Sony's new revised Android. If you prefer it stock, if you prefer stock, if you think Sony should just give up with their own kind of UI. What's also notable about it is they've let go of a lot of their applications. You have the Google Calendar application this time. You don't have the Sony one, and they've just generally tidied things up. You also don't have small apps from what I can see, although you still have the same fundamental user interface, which is pinch out to get an overview of your home screens where you can change your wallpaper, widgets and themes. It's also smooth. I didn't come into slowdown when it came to the UI. In fact, there was only really one area I did come into slowdown. So that's me waffling on about this user interface done. It's again, just like the screen, just like the design, a real high point on the Xperia XZ. We have a question?
So, can you change the way the apps scroll left to right or up to down?
The app scroll?
Yeah.
Not entirely. So the question was, can you change the way the apps scroll? I assume you mean the apps tray, and the answer to that is no. The three dots on the right-hand side allow you to sort your apps and manage your apps and jump into settings. Settings really is all of the customizations you can make, which is more extensive than most manufacturers, but I can't see a landscape or portrait scrolling.
Is there a one swipe to quick settings?
One swipe to quick settings? No. So scroll down from the top to the bottom, and you're going to pull down your search tray, but not your applications tray. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty prescribed swiping setup.
How deep does the theme engine go? Can it change settings and notification colors too?
I haven't seen it. Anything around notification colors changing, but we can definitely jump into the settings to have a look for that. Sound and notifications, notification sounds, notification lights. You've got your notification light functionality, but it doesn't look like you can actually change the notification colors. Anything else, Gina?
Not on the UI, no.
Okay, cool. So that leads me on to performance of this thing. And the performance, like I said, from that Snapdragon 820 across the user interface has been really good, actually. Really, really good. I haven't found that the UI itself struggles. That isn't the complete story, though. I'm going to come on to camera, and the camera has really bugged me so much with its slowdown. But I almost blame Sony more than I blame the power under the hood for this thing. Jumping into Antutu, and you can see that this scores a pretty respectable score of over 100,000, which is sweet. 104,000. In the ranking, don't get me wrong, this isn't the most powerful device around, but this has been Antutu'd after a full week of having used it. It's still, like you can see, performs very favorably compared to some of the top flagships out there. Indeed, gaming I found was absolutely no problem on this thing. Admittedly, I mainly played like pretty unintense RPGs and stuff like that, but I played Oz as well. And in addition, Soul Calibur, Lara Croft Go, some of the more 3G stuff, and it was absolutely fine. It didn't have any problem with it. So between that and Antutu benchmark, the general user interface performance as well, it really makes me think that the power under the hood on this thing, even with that 3 gigabytes of RAM, because this has 3 gig of RAM, it's less than a lot of the others, other flagships out there, isn't really hampered too much. It does all come down to the camera, which I will come on to very shortly. Any questions, Gina?
Is this a final review unit?
This is a final review unit. It is, I'm guessing, retail software as well. As soon as public software goes out, we'll be getting it on here. But we were told this is pretty much as good as final as there is available right now.
Okay, and it's now just heating, battery life, waterproof, and headphones.
Okay,
questions.
cool.
Yeah.
So jumping into, do you know what? It's that time of the day. It's time to talk about the camera. Now, the camera on this thing, just to recap, it's a 23 megapixel rear camera and it's a 13 megapixel front camera. I wouldn't say I've been putting off doing this, but this is such a big talking point because ultimately you've got two final cameras on here. If I fire up the rear camera, you can see how long it takes to fire up. Do you see that? That's insane for a flagship phone. The camera application, after like loading up your stuff on there and using it like you would a real phone, like we're telling people who want to buy this phone to go and buy it and do, takes too long to open up for a device that's so hell-bent on focusing on how good the focus is. The camera just takes too long to fire up. Once you actually take a picture, do you see all the... Slow down, guys. Once you actually take a picture and you come to tap the picture, it prevents you from actually jumping into the picture for a while. And then you've got loads and loads of delay when you come to actually open up the picture. It's just, that in itself kills the user experience. The most annoying thing, it's a really good picture. Really good picture. Now I've got that set, I think, to 23 megapixels. So you can speed things up by not doing what I do, flicking it to 8 megapixels, and then you've got a lot less information to process, and it is a lot quicker. But what I'd say to Sony is, like, why are you putting your 23 megapixel sensor in here if it impacts the experience that badly? So I've got it down to 8 megapixels. Let's fire it up again, do a quick test to see if it takes as long to fire up. Not quite as long, but it still wasn't super instantaneous. So my first top tip would be open up the settings and make sure you're at 8 megapixels. The image quality isn't much worse, if any worse at all, because it's intelligent auto. It grabs all the 23 megapixels and squishes them into an 8 megapixel picture. It's called oversampling and it rocks. And you're going to save yourself heaps of time and potentially prevent yourself from missing the shot. So once you end up doing that and you actually have a really good picture, which in fairness to Sony it is set to by default, you'll also be stoked to see that there is manual mode on here. Super stoked in a lot of respects. If I tap on those three lines, you can see you've got manual focus, you've got manual shutter speed, manual exposure, and manual white balance. Tap into the settings and you can control the ISO as well. It's cool. Check out our Instagram if you haven't already. I posted a light trail with this thing. I also posted a light trail with the Xperia X Compact yesterday as well. So popping that open, you can see both of these phones, the fact that they have manual mode opens them up to some really, really sweet photography. It's a maximum of a 1 second exposure though, which isn't going to please hardcore photo fans out there, but it still gives you more versatility than Sony phones had before. So we are definitely making progress with this, especially as you can see the 8 megapixel mode, which is way, way, way quicker to open. But it's still limiting. You can't shoot RAW, and if I wanted to control the shutter speed and the ISO simultaneously, I actually wouldn't be allowed to. So I can flick the ISO to 100, which I might very well want to do with a very slow shutter to prevent anything from blowing out. Press on the shutter speed, it's on auto. I want to drop that down to the 1 second exposure. Then I want to jump in and pick a different ISO settings, but it's flicked my ISO to auto again. So it basically won't let you change ISO and shutter speed at the same time. Now I know this might be a really, really tiny thing, and most people might just be like, Basil, get over yourself, no one cares about that. And I'm like, I get it, but other manufacturers let you do both, and I just don't get why there's an arbitrary restriction on that. Now, I've talked about that. I haven't talked about the pure image quality, and the image quality from 23 megapixel rear sensor is really good. It is really, really good. You get loads of detail in there. Shoot at 8 megapixels, my recommendation. It's not quite as good as the iPhone 7. It is better in terms of general color accuracy than the Xperia Z5, and you also do, like I said, pick up a bit more detail as well, or appear to. I think it's just more nicely contrasted finish. Before I jump onto video, Gina, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we've got loads of
about the camera.
About the camera.
Okay, cool. Here goes nothing.
Okay, so how does it compare to the S7?
S7's better.
Oh, easy. How's the shutter speed?
The shutter speed maximum 1 second, like I said, and it once you do get a 1 second shutter speed in there, it's really great.
So does this camera slowdown occur as well on the X Compact?
So in 23 megapixels, this camera slowdown is going to occur on every Sony phone that you have. The X Compact I haven't been using for as long, but can fire it up and you can see it fired up really, really quickly. In fact, all Sony phones, when you get them out of the box, they fire up super quickly. But it's the more you use them, the more you have that slowdown. I know Gina, when she reviewed her Xperia XZ, she found that sometimes it would take like multiple seconds for the camera to open with that MediaTek underpowered processor in there.
So how does it compare to the Z5?
Yeah, the camera is better than the Z5. What's noticeable is the handheld experience. Because it's got that 5-axis stabilization, if you haven't already, guys, check out the handheld video sample I posted earlier today. It's just shows just what amazing stabilization this has in good light. In poor light, things can look a bit blurry. I did another stabilization test with an iPhone 7, and the optical image stabilization won out in low light, but actually in good light, the digital 5-axis image stabilization is the nuts.
Lots of people saying that maybe there'll be a software update to fix the slowness.
Do you know what? There definitely will be. So software updates have been really helpful for past Xperia devices. The reality is, though, we're recommending this based on what we've got right now. And would we recommend picking one up? If you can keep it down to 8 megapixels and you're happy with that, then absolutely.
Should other manufacturers be threatened of this camera?
Should other manufacturers be threatened by this camera? Yes and no. Yes, because of that image stabilization in video. It's class leading, 5-axis stabilization, whatever that means, makes so much difference. I can actually open up that video. You're going to have to excuse. And also, you see, guys, I've tapped through on that. That just took too long to swipe through all of those settings. Video. So this is actual video for anyone who hasn't seen. I'll put the audio on as well.
A quick sample video showcasing the Xperia XZ's 23 megapixel camera in full HD video.
That looks like it was shot on a Steadicam or something. That's so good. So good. And that's what I'm talking about. This phone breaks my heart because in some ways it just drops the ball, but in others it absolutely nails it. So in terms of the camera quality for pictures, I wouldn't say it's the best out there, but in good light for video, it could well be there. It's also got really smart object tracking as well, so I tapped on that return sign and I moved it all out of focus and stuff, but it still locked focus pretty nicely. So yeah, I'll stop that. Any more questions, Gina?
What about the front camera?
Front camera is great. I'm going to come on to that in a second. Specifically, what's great about the front camera is how wide that angle is. You do also have 13 megapixels in there too.
And if you wanted to upgrade from the Z5 to the XZ purely for the camera, would you do it?
No. No, I honestly wouldn't. In spite of the fact the XZ has got a very good camera, I'd say potentially hold out, unless like you really, really value video. But the Z5 had very good video stabilisation too.
Okay, the rest is overheating issues with video.
Okay, cool. So now we're going to actually talk about overheating with videos. This is going to depend largely on two things. First thing, how recently you charged your phone. I know that sounds weird, but when you charge your phone, you generate a lot of heat. This overheating issue, it's not prescriptive in the sense that it's not going to let you record X amount of minutes and then it'll prevent you from recording anymore. It's all going to be dictated by the environmental heat and the heat that's already within this device. What's also interesting is the fact that now the front camera, because it's higher resolution, is kind of hampered by heat as well. So I had the front camera shut down on me because of heat. What you can also see occasionally, again, posted this to Instagram the other day, I got this warning. The following functions are disabled. Face detection, auto scene recognition, object tracking. Please wait for your device to cool down and then restart the camera. So that's just, it feels like something's just not right here. Like if we're getting warnings like that. Now I've had that warning after about 10 minutes of shooting while the device was plugged in, not even 10 minutes of solid shooting. But yet at the same time, I've still been able to record 4K for over 50 minutes without the phone switching off. In cold environments, whack it out. Record. You'll be able to take pictures and videos for ages and ages. But if you're in a hot climate or you've just charged this thing and you can feel it's getting hot, there will be a good chance that this will overheat and prevent you from recording a long video or indeed taking lots of photos. Still, this may be fixed in software updates. It definitely was improved upon in the Z3 Plus right through to the Z5. If any of you guys have Z3 Pluses as well, I'd be really interested to know how yours performs now when it comes to heat. Gina, any more questions?
So they're just wondering if it overheats just for 4K or regular?
No. So it isn't just overheating for 4K. In fact, 4K, it overheated less than it did in regular use randomly. It's like, I have no idea why, but I think it largely is dictated by the environment that you're shooting in. And like I said, how much you charge it up. The front camera as well overheated once, and the rear camera overheated twice. So that kind of threw me quite a lot because I've never had a front camera overheat.
Very hot or just warm?
Feels just warm. So if you watch my comparison, 4K timed comparison with the iPhone 7, I put my hand on the back of it after 15 minutes of 4King, and even though it did give me a warning, after I shut down, to be fair to it, it didn't shut down because it was too hot. It just felt warm. It didn't feel anything like the Z3 Plus. The Z3 Plus, for people who don't know, was an absolute beast. It actually left a rectangular shaped rash on my thigh because it got so hot because it was in my pocket. That overheated like a mofo. This one just gets warm.
Jack's just said he's got a Z3 Plus and it's improved after updates.
Thanks, Jack. You're awesome. Yeah, so I'm quite happy with this in the respect that I was able to get almost an hour of 4K video out of it, which is immense. 4K, you're ingesting a shed load of information, but it's not ideal, obviously, if for taking selfies and selfie videos, it doesn't let you record for ages. As far as the selfie quality goes, can jump into a picture. As you can see, it just took ages for the camera to open, and I'm set to 8 megapixels, so that won't fix everything, guys. But took a selfie. Maybe too much detail. You don't want to see my face that closely. But what's most impressive is the fact that it captures a shed load more information in than the Z5. So the Z5 just has a way less wide angle. You're going to have to excuse all the mess in the background, but this will be a pretty illustrative example of exactly how much wider an angle it is. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So yeah, loads of friends get this over the Z5. To the answer to the guy who was asking earlier whether he should upgrade from the Z5, if you really hate your Z5's front camera and you want a similar rear camera experience but better video, this one is great.
And does it overheat in general use or just when you're using the camera?
Doesn't overheat at all in general use. I haven't even felt this get too warm. When you're charging it and it's warm, that's pretty much identical to every other phone. Samsung's in particular get pretty warm when you're charging too. This is no different.
Okay.
Cool. Sweet. So that is the fundamentals of the camera. There are also things that I didn't talk about. Time-lapse video, you can do, you can download a host of other photo modes as well. So jumping into them, the Sony camera has always been really, really great for creative effects. You can have AR mode on, so you can overlay things on screen. This is where you shoot 4K video. I also did a time-lapse video, and what's amazing about time-lapse videos is the fact that it will take 4K. You have to pay a little bit to get the 4K functionality unlocked, but it will take each picture and load it into the Xperia. The iPhone's time lapses doesn't give you that much creativity. It just creates a final video out of it. It's a better video, don't get me wrong, but when you take all the pictures from the time lapse, put them into Photoshop, you can actually have a really good play about with it and make it look stu-freaking-pendous. For some fun stuff as well, the creative effects that have been with Sony for a while, actually this is another area that overheats old Sony phones pretty aggressively. The creative effects, which can take a while to open, as you can see. Note if the device temperature is rising, the app may close during your recording, although you'll be saved automatically. This gives you loads and loads of out-of-the-box fun effects, but as you can see, it's running really, really slowly, which doesn't look like it's running on a flagship. Those effects include stuff like a mosaic, where you can actually change the intensity and stuff. Even if it does run slowly, I'd rather have these than not have these, because if you're have a company or something and you're just taking company website pictures, or even just personal, want to have a little bit of fun, they are sweet for that kind of stuff. I'm pretty much wrapped up talking about the camera though. It gets a big thumbs up aside from the heat issue. Also, detail isn't as good as the iPhone 7, for example, and the Samsung Galaxy S7, but the video stabilization is second to none in good light.
Yeah, what about low light?
Yeah, good point. Low light's decent, it's not mind-blowing. So what I found is anything with digital image stabilization just doesn't nail it in low light. I have got a couple of pictures that I've taken that can illustrate that. These samples are going to be in the description below as well, guys, along with the same sample taken on an iPhone 7, so you can get a side-by-side and gauge exactly what you think of them. So this picture was taken in good light, and as you can see, they're the keys close up, and this picture was taken in low light, and you can see it looks decent, but the iPhone 7 was just a little bit sharper. It is better than the Z5 in low light, but like I said, the iPhone 7 just beats it, and so does the S7. So the optical image stabilization does tend to win out in low light.
People asking, should I upgrade from a Z2 or a Z3 for the camera?
Yeah, definitely. The Z2 and Z3 had super inferior cameras, especially the front camera. I think that it can't be overstated how much better the front camera of this is than older Sony phones, and specifically the Z2 and Z3. Also, you're going to love the new design, guys, if you do. The Z2 and Z3 looked great, but this looks the business.
Yeah, that's camera.
And camera done. Cool. Now let's talk about a matter that's pretty close to my heart, and that's internal memory. This has 32 gigs of internal memory. This compact has 32 gigs of internal memory. This has 32 gigs of internal memory. This has 32 gigs. 32 gigs is a number that goes around phones that are flagships and not flagships these days. And personally speaking, I don't think any flagship going forward should have any less than 64 gigabytes of internal memory. I've had this phone for no more than a week. In fact, a full week. Used it as my daily driver. And if I jump into the settings, I am a power user, but like you have to understand, literally a week of this phone and I filled it up 81%. I've also got a 200 gig memory card in there, which I've been recording all my 4K footage to. So this is with like apps and stuff. Seriously, if you want to buy this on a 24-month contract, then you're going to want to go for a 64 gig version, or you're going to want to stick a really big SD card in there. And even then, you might need to be watching things, deleting files, in order to prevent yourself from running into this phone cannot record anymore because you've run out of memory warnings. So that's my thing on storage. I'd be interested to see if you guys agree with me, or you just think I'm a crazy, greedy memory hog user. But that brings me on to connections pretty nicely, and this has everything under the sun. Interestingly though, the NFC contact point is on the front, it isn't on the back, so it's right next to the front camera. Around the back you've got that metal body. Sony clearly thought it was a way easier jobby to get it in the front right there. You've also got a USB Type-C at the base, and this is a bit of a point of contention for me. Now, I freaking love USB on the go, USB-C on the go in particular. So the reason is, this is a USB 3 connection to a USB-C on the go. So annoying! But in spite of that, the USB-C will still enable super fast data transfers to a computer, as well as your standard fast charging too. It also has Wi-Fi, the latest internet speeds depending on your region. Here I think we're just getting Cat 9 in the UK, and Bluetooth, GPS, all that good stuff. Any questions on storage or connections?
Yeah, does it support unified storage?
No, so it doesn't support adaptable storage. So if you fire up the settings and jump into storage, the options are exactly as I showed you. You have Smart Cleaner, which is actually helpful, helps you clean cached files and stuff like that. You have data transfer, and you can uninstall apps. That's it. Any other questions?
No, someone's pointed out though that it doesn't have optical image stabilisation.
No, it's digital image stabilisation, 5-axis digital. Sorry guys if I said optical earlier, which I may well have done.
Yeah, most people just wondering about adaptable storage.
No adaptable storage, and like I said, no USB on the go. And they're probably my two biggest gripes with this thing, as well as the fact it's not 64 gigabytes of memory. A phone that costs over £500 these days, in my opinion, I personally, and this is a pretty bold statement, I personally wouldn't spend over £500 on a phone that didn't have 64 gig internal storage and microSD expandability. Or so in answer to someone earlier who asked about the OnePlus 3, the OnePlus 3's key selling point is that 64 gig of memory, but that said, I probably still wouldn't buy it because it doesn't have SD card as well. P9 Plus at this rate, or the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Any other questions, Gina?
Does it have a separate slot for SIMs and SD card, or do you put your...
It's a single SIM card device, so you have one slot for SD card, one slot, so one tray here. Pull out the tray, and that has both the SD and the SIM card on it. I would take it out, but with Sony phones, if you pull out the tray, it will reset it.
Yeah, that's about it on storage.
Okay, awesome. And I've spoken about connections as well, and the last thing to talk about is the battery. And it's got a 2900 cell under the hood, paired with a 5.2.
Here we go. Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Hey guys, sorry we had the feed down there for a second. I will resume as soon as we get confirmation that we are back. If you can see us, just say hey. We good, Gina?
Someone says back. Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Sorry about that, guys. So just to recap, I was talking about the battery. So it's 2900 milliamps under the cell. I posted a comparison video of what 4K for 15 minutes will do to the battery life of this thing, and it knocked it down from 100% to about I think it was like 85% or something, whereas the iPhone was like 94% or something like that. So there was about 9% in it, which really annoyed me, because the iPhone's got a teeny tiny like 1900 odd milliamp cell, but still, this will get me through a day, so screen off time seems to be relatively economical. Also, if you're using like power intensive apps like the camera, which we've clearly proven generates a lot of heat and is power intensive, it will disproportionately kill the battery by contrast to screen off time. So it does balance out to about a day of regular use. But 2900 milliamps, it can't stack up to the likes of the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge with its 3600 milliamps, or even the Samsung Galaxy S7, which is like 5.2 inch screen as well and has those extra 100 milliamps under the hood and similar power demands. And that's pretty much each specific section covered. Gina, do we have any questions?
Battery, how long does it take to fully charge?
Fully charged, so we're yet to do a full charge from zero test, basically because since we've got this in, anyone who's seen the channel will probably see we've been posting other videos relentlessly, but that is something we wanted to do. The main reason for that is we also wanted to get an Xperia X compact in and do a 0 to 100 side by side, so that we wouldn't have to spam your inbox with videos. I know some of you guys have been mentioning that you've been getting a bit weirded out by some of our weird videos, and maybe if you guys have any opinions on out of the frequency you'd quite like us to post videos, that would help us like figure out what we actually specifically share with you. But we'll be posting that video down the line. First impressions are with a quick charge. It's very, very similar in terms of battery charge time to the Z5 though.
Can it last a day with moderate use?
Yes, it can, but it does depend on what your moderate use is. If you have a whole load of background applications that just run in the background and it's in your pocket, you'll probably be okay. But if your moderate use includes screen on time, then you might be hampered.
So what was the screen on time, do you know?
I don't know the full screen on time. Again, that's a test that we haven't done. I've just been using it day to day as my daily driver since we got it in until we moved to the iPhone.
Is it waterproof?
Yes, it's so when it comes to the design, it is IP68 certified. So it can handle a submerging, it can also handle splashes and some dust encounters as well. In terms of the waterproofing and how much I tested it out, I used it in the rain, I used it and it got drenched in the rain, and obviously it's still working, which is more than can be said for a lot of other phones. But I haven't gone scuba diving with it.
Someone's asking, is there the FM radio still?
No FM radio on this, guys. It's been a point of contention for a lot of you, I know. So for starters, you won't see the FM radio application in here, and it doesn't support FM radio either from what I've read online.
And someone's asking, does Sony keep your fingerprints in the cloud?
Now that I don't know, but I'd anticipate they were locked down to the specific device. So I've activated Xperia Backup, and every time you get a new phone, even if you're moving from a device with a fingerprint scanner to a device with a fingerprint scanner, you have to manually enter every new fingerprint. I'm anticipating that's a Google level security feature here. Within Android, I'm guessing Google locks down what Sony can do with those fingerprints.
Do we have a price?
Price is 500, well, it's going to be between 500 and 550 pounds depending on where you get it.
Okay. How's the fingerprint scanner performance?
Fingerprint scanner performance is fan-freaking-tastic. So it is an actual physical button. It isn't going to be like a fingerprint scanner on, for example, an HTC 10 or a Huawei where you just have to tap it. So physically press it and it'll fire up relatively quickly. You can also obviously set it to multiple fingers, which I have done. And I haven't set it to my index finger on my right hand, but I have set it to my index finger on my left hand, as you can see, and it fires up relatively quickly. I don't personally love it, fingerprint scanners on the right hand side, as much as I do on the front and back, just because they're a little bit more awkward. Your device is on a surface and you want to switch it on. Luckily though, like I said earlier, that double tap to wake feature is on there. And then you can fire it up, but you still have to unlock it and stuff like that. And as for devices with fingerprint scanners around the back, that's just a little bit more ergonomic in my opinion. It's where your finger naturally falls. And sure, your thumb does fall here, but it just doesn't feel as natural always to press the indent.
Sound quality in headphones?
Sound quality in headphones is good. I've listened to it mainly with Bluetooth headphones. I did do a little bit of plugging in. What I did with the plugging in was test out the various sound options. So that actually brings me on to another point. Anyone who's seen my speaker comparison across the HTC 10, the iPhone, and the Xperia X Compact, you'll see in the comments I got a shed load of stick. You guys are, a lot of you really were angry with me for not switching Clear Audio Plus on. I did do a preceding test to see what sound effects do what, and I found that S-Force Surround impacted the volume of the audio the most, and so I switched that on. But none of these additional options are switched on by default. The DSEEX, and you can actually jump into sound effects and you can control the equalizer. Gives you a lot of control over how things sound with the headphones, which is really great, really great. So if you are into your audio, obviously this has high-res audio support as well if you have high-res audio headphones, but you've got further control still over it. But a lot of you guys were saying that I needed to have switched on Clear Audio Plus because that would have made the vocals come through that little bit more. To you, I apologize. That's all I can do. To err is human, but to forgive divine. So please forgive me on that one. I will be sure to do so in the future and potentially do some tests as to exactly what Clear Audio Plus does to the sound settings. But if you haven't checked out that comparison, you do so because we pull out a really clear reason why the XZ is a great speakerphone, but it isn't quite as boom as the HTC 10 and the iPhone 7, because those guys have stereo speakers paired with a fair bit more volume and clout.
Can you record the screen of the phone?
Can you record the screen of the phone? I don't know if you can do so out of the box. So if you long press the power button, you're given the option to take a screenshot. But for anyone who doesn't know, there is an awesome application. I highly recommend anyone who wants to do stuff like that, and that's called A2Z Screen Recorder. Download that and you can record the screen on any smart Android smartphone.
Does it come with headphones in the box?
No headphones in the box in my one, but mine might not have been a final retail unit because we got the pre-order one that comes with the amazing Bluetooth headphones. I can't remember the model number, but they're just super, super big round cans that jump over your ears.
Is it a top 5 flagship of 2016? Where would you rank it?
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so in terms of my top 5 flagships of 2016, I would rank the Samsung Galaxy Note in there. I'd rank the iPhone 7. I'd rank the Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge. I would rank the Huawei P9 Plus. And I'd probably rank potentially the HTC 10. Yeah, would I say it was a top 5? Oh, it's the little things that let this down. In certain respects, it's absolute number one. Like I said, the video's fan-freaking-tastic. The camera capabilities are cool, but the overheating lets it down. I'd say it was a top 10 without a shadow of a doubt. It could be a top 1 if you want the specific things that this is good at. But for me personally, unfortunately for Sony, it isn't a top 5.
Okay. Does it scratch? What's the metal like?
Now, that's one of the areas it's definitely a potentially even top 1. It hasn't had any scratches. The Alkalido just seems really, really hardy and robust. I've had this alongside Huawei Nova Plus. The Nova Plus scratched like a mofo, whereas this one stayed pretty hardy. And of course, you've got that Gorilla Glass screen as well. Any other questions?
Is the performance a beast?
Performance, I mean, it is a beast. It does everything you want it to do as like lightning fast speed until you come to open up that camera. Just press the camera button, and even at 8 megapixels, that's unacceptable for a flagship. Any others, Gina?
How's the actual calling and microphone sound?
Call and microphone sound was really good, really good. Didn't experience any problems there at all.
Okay, and lots of people just wondering what your favourite colour is out of the green, the black and the grey, I think.
This one. So I love this one, whatever this is. I think it might even be the black or like the green one. On the box it said black, but I'm pretty sure that's the compact. Yeah, on the box it said I had the black one, but I'm pretty sure this is the green one. Whatever you can get that looks as much like this as possible. Reason being, it's the one that looks the most different from every angle you view it at. It kind of looks blue, kind of looks green, kind of looks black.
Is 3 gigabytes of RAM enough?
I didn't get that RAM was slowing me down at any point. Like I said, user interface interaction, application interaction as well, jumping from app to app was a pretty sweet deal, but it really is just down to that camera. Hell, if 4 gigabytes is going to fix that camera problem, 4 gigabyte me up, but I don't know if it will.
And is there any fast charging?
Yeah, it's going to have fast charging in the box. I think it's going to be Quick Charge 3.0.
Okay, someone said it has the stream stopped for everyone. But it says that we're still live.
So yeah, if you guys have any questions, or actually if you guys can feedback on whether we're live or not, the stream apparently has stopped for some people.
Live.
Yeah, we're live. Amazing, thanks. Yeah, so that's been a mammoth. It's been 50 minutes. So this generally is, like I said, a new format for all our videos, but we do want to know what you say. Some of you guys have commented in our videos saying you don't want to see any more live streams. Some of you have said that you want us to do loads more live streams. We're going to do a poll and we're going to get a consensus from everyone as to what they do want to see and what you want to see, because we love the live stream format because it means as soon as we get something in, we can just show you and share it with you, and it doesn't take as long to get your way. But if we're sacrificing too much on quality and you just don't like that, we want to know so that we can give you exactly, like I said, what you want. Hopefully you enjoyed this though, and you found it a really comprehensive, interactive experience with the Xperia XZ, a fantastic flagship that has some real issues when it comes to the camera, specifically around user action and user interaction, more than the image quality and video quality itself. If you did like the video, click that like button. It'll be available to comment on once it's processed out. But yeah, subscribe to the channel if you want more alerts like this. When you're subscribed to the channel, you'll get an alert in your your notification bar every time we come to post a live video, and then you can ask us all the questions that you've got yourselves. Thanks for watching Btekt. Thanks, Gina.